Oh man, a lot of people hate it, but boy do I love this one. Oh yeah, Crobat. Now, I know a lot of people, they tend to put Zubat on like their most hated list, because like, oh, they're everywhere and they confuse you and they heal themselves, and I'm like, you know what? The Pokemon I hate to encounter most in caves is Geodude, Graveler, and Boldore, because you know what? Because of Sturdy, they don't go down in one hit, and they all explode! Yeah, when I go into a cave, I'm much more worried about the packs of unkillable exploding rocks than I am about a few bats. And, you know, those Zubat are kind of annoying at first, but then you rub a couple of brain cells together and think, can I put these incredibly annoying tactics to use against the game? And then you're all... because you realize you can, and believe me, there are few things more satisfying than telling the gym leader's strongest Pokemon to... Stop it yourself! Stop it yourself! Because here's the thing, Zubat, it's another one of those Pokemon that's kind of a project in that you don't get that immediate power you get with a lot of the other starting flying types, but it actually levels up to get some incredible type coverage. It learns like Bite, Confuse Ray, and Wing Attack. Once you get that, you're all set. And then, as early as level 23, it will evolve into Crobat. Crobat is just amazing. It's got really good stats, it has phenomenal speed, and honestly, not any of the other early flying Pokemon can compare. I mean, mad props for Staraptor. Staraptor is actually really good, but Pidgeot, Fearow, Swellow, freaking Pelipper, If you want a really good Pokemon, go for Crobat. Its speed is insane, and until the Prankster ability came out, it had the reputation of being the fastest Pokemon that could put you to sleep. Also, its typing is actually really good. It has a quadruple resistance to fighting, bug, and grass moves, as well as being immune to poison and immune to ground attacks, and that's a really good type combination. Ever notice that there haven't been any other Pokemon with that type combination that have come out? Anyway, Crobat is a really good Pokemon. In fact, it's so good, I actually went and took the time and trouble to grab a Zubat in Pokemon XD and took all of that incredible time and effort to level it up into a Crobat, and honestly, I don't think the game's developers expected anybody to actually do that, because the game was just a breeze once I got Crobat going.
Everybody was kung fu fighting. Those kids were fast.
Up next, it's Torchic. Now, I really like Torchic long before it developed its hidden ability and became completely overpowered. I really liked it because, you know, it's adorable in its starting form, it has a good theme going for it, and it turns into a freaking kung fu disco chicken at the end. It was the first Pokemon that evolved into a combined fire-fighting type. Now, that's kind of old hat these days, but back in the day it was fairly revolutionary. It also has some great attacking stats, and a fairly good move pool that also includes some flying moves in there, which a lot of the other fire-fighting don't get. I also completely offhand chose Torchic to be my partner Pokemon in the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Darkness game. And here's the funny thing, the character in that game, no matter what you pick, constantly apologizes for acting like a chicken. I mean, hey, you are a chicken, don't worry about it. Ah, the pseudo-legendary category. The Pokemon that are incredibly powerful, up in the leagues of legendary Pokemon, and yet they take a whole lot of time to get to. They are the Pokemon with the highest evolution levels, but also some of the highest stats. Now, I've been kind of on and off on a lot of the pseudo-legendary Pokemon. Like, I kind of like one, but then, oh, I have to develop my team around it, like I mentioned with Tyranitar. And, you know, I like some, but then it kind of gets too popular or gets moved into the Uber tier or something, and, you know, despite all the years and all the pseudo-legendary Pokemon I've been having, I kind of noticed that there's been a loyal friend that's been with me all these years. And so, number 5 is Massimo the Metagross. Massimo has been on my competitive battling team since the days of Ruby and Sapphire. And as other members of the team became obsolete and faded away, Massimo somehow managed to still stick around. It's just an all-around great Pokemon with good hit points, good attack, good defenses, a great type combination, as well as the ability to use Stealth Rock and to laugh at things like Sandstorm, or Stealth Rock thrown at it, or Poison Spikes. It's just a really great and reliable Pokemon, and Massimo, I'm sure, will be with me as long as it can be transferred forward. Thank you, old friend, you served me well. Although, if there ever comes a time where I can't transfer it forward, you can be rest assured that Massimo's successor will be named Metal Gear! Alright, now we're really getting into the big guns. There have been a lot of really good mascot Pokemon. That would be the Pokemon that represent the version on the box. I already mentioned White Kyurem before, but my favorite of the mascot Pokemon has got to be Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh is just a really cool, regal Pokemon with an air of mystery around it that hasn't been ruined by some god-awful movie. Ho-Oh holds the distinction of being the first legendary Pokemon to appear in the canon of the anime. It's also the first Generation 2 Pokemon to ever appear, and it is so far the only Pokemon to not actually star in its own movie. I mean, it's cameoed in a few, but has never been the real focus. Kinda makes me wonder how they'd make it end. Would it be like Ho-Oh has Shadow Dash this entire time, and in the final movie they ever make, it reveals itself and everything it's been doing? But that's kind of one of the reasons I like it. It's just got that air of mystery to it. It's also a really fun Pokemon to have. It's got a really catchy theme tune, it's got a great place to have a showdown, and thanks to the fact that it has Regenerator, it's actually able to get around a lot of its Stealth Rock weakness. Now, Ho-Oh may be my favorite Uber legendary, my favorite mascot legendary, but it's definitely not my favorite legendary. That would be... Now, Squirtle may have been my first Pokemon, but Zapdos was my first power trip. After I caught this thing, I was like, oh my god, this thing's so powerful, it's killing like everything! It's like, you got Zapdos! It's like, I guess the idea of the three legendary birds was that, you know, Moltres could beat Articuno and Articuno could beat Zapdos, but Zapdos could beat both of them, and it was the only one that learned Drill Peck, so it really was the best. It was like the best Pokemon in the game, except Bart and Mewtwo, but forget Mewtwo, everybody knows about Mewtwo. It's Zapdos is where it's at, you know. If you played a game of Articuno, Moltres, Zapdos, and you're like rock, paper, scissors, Zapdos would win every time, unless your opponent also throws Zapdos, in which case it's just crazy, you don't even want to talk about that. Another thing about Zapdos is that it's super effective against the final forms of all three starter Pokemon. It can take out Charizard and Blastoise with electricity, and take out Venusaur using Drill Peck. So I'm playing against my friends. I'm like, oh, here's one of your starter Pokemon. Well, guess what? You just got Zapdos. Using the Master Ball was totally worth it. What do you mean? There's still Mewtwo. And next is... You thought this was going to be number one, didn't it? Well, Chikorita is definitely my favorite starter Pokemon, as I have established before. I really like Chikorita, but a lot of people seem to really don't, so I guess I'll really have to spell it out for you. The thing about Chikorita that makes it so good is that it's actually really useful. It learns Razor Leaf incredibly early, and it was the first starter Pokemon to actually learn a strong self-recovery move, being Synthesis. It's also a really good support Pokemon with great defensive stats, and it can learn screens and various powders and stuff. And honestly, all those people who complain about Whitney's Miltank, between Onix and Bayleaf, I've never had a problem with it because I can use Onix to lower its defense, I can use Bayleaf to set up screens and poison it and recover and tank, and really, Whitney's Miltank just doesn't give me any trouble when I'm playing through his Bayleaf. Oh, and remember the Chikorita that, like, defeated Ash's Charizard? So you're welcome to go ahead and pick any starter you want in Generation 2. I'll be over here in the Gyarados and Arcanine Club. You can go ahead and play with Bellsprout or Sunkern or Hoppip.
Hoppip? Oh, you gotta be kidding me! No!
Chikorita is also who I play as in all the Mystery Dungeon games, and you know, I kind of try to do this as kind of a chance to turn around the image on the Pokemon as being like small and annoying, so I always make him like really awesome and hard-boiled. So it's come down to this. Kohdok's most favorite Pokemon ever. Well, if you care to hazard a guess, and if you've ever looked at my avatar at all, you'll know that it was... Ralts! No, not Gardevoir. The internet's kind of made Gardevoir a bit too weird to be a favorite thing. Although, you can kind of use it to perform some good mind games as a special tank by using Trace against Pokemon like Vaporeon or Thundurus T to like juke them out and gain recovery when you should be taking damage, but, you know, internet, why must you ruin everything good? No, I like Ralts a bit more because it's just kind of a fun little underdog Pokemon. Its combined base stat total is less than 200. There are Pokemon who have individual base stats at 200, so that there's a Pokemon with a combined base stat total below that is just kind of amazing. It's actually a pretty funny Pokemon with that little bowl cut there. Although it's a gender-neutral design, but I can only imagine the kind of hardships that male Curlia have to go through going into school. Another reason I really like Ralts is because I have actually invented my own kind of Pokemon run. You've gone through Nuzlocke, you have experienced the horror of wedlock, but now I introduce Raltslock! The rules of Raltslock are simple. You must pick a Pokemon whose combined base stat total is 200 or less, so basically Magikarp on down. At the start of your game, the instant you are able to trade, you must exchange your starter Pokemon for an egg containing that Pokemon, meaning you have to catch something else. Once that egg is hatched, that Pokemon is the only Pokemon you may ever use in battle, ever. You may not use any other Pokemon, although you can carry an HM Slave, but if you have an HM Slave and you get involved in like a double or triple battle, you have to be constantly using useless items with those Pokemon. So basically, if this Pokemon goes down, the game is over, this main Pokemon. And there's one other stipulation. You may never evolve that Pokemon. It has to spend the entire game in its basic form. Now this is actually a pretty fun little challenge because there's basically only 9 Pokemon to choose from, and most of them, in fact, if not all of them, are god-awful. I call it Raltslock because Ralts actually has the moveset and a fairly decent attacking stat to maybe tough it out. I've gotten pretty far. I've gotten to the confrontation with Dialga before being immediately floored by Cyrus in one hit. But that's kind of the excitement of Raltslock, in that you are always constantly on that knife's edge between victory and defeat, because even if you level it up really high, you still have a woefully underpowered Pokemon that will have difficulty. But, you know, if somebody can beat Final Fantasy I using a single White Mage, then I'm sure a Raltslock can be done. So that's my top 15 Pokemon for the first 5 generations. Now, I know Generation 6 has been out for a few months, and in fact I've played it so much that I've completed the Pokedex in it, and there have been a few things that have shown up in there that I actually really like and would love to talk about, but I think that'll be a video for another time. Hopefully it won't take as long as this one. Anyway, until next time, this is Kohdok signing off. Gotta catch 'em all! Really? All those Generation 4 Pokemon and the only one to get in on its own merit was Fiane? Ugh.